Our next speaker will be Reverend Joy E. Rogers. She's an Episcopal priest. And welcome.
I am an Episcopal priest. I'm the Dean of the Cathedral here in Chicago, and I am here today on behalf of my Bishop, Jeffrey Lee, and the people of St. James Cathedral. When I was ordained in 1985, the hot issue in my denomination at that time was about women priests. Oh, we had lots of gay clergy in those days, but we were still working on the military, don't ask, don't tell way of doing things. But I was lucky. I was called to serve a congregation in Evanston, actually, that was affirming and supportive of its gay and lesbian parishioners as that was defined in 1985. That's changed some since. But for me, a pretty green and new priest, I was brought into relationship with people who cared about me, who were willing to help me come to new consciousness, new kinds of awareness, who were willing to share their struggles and their lives in ways I absolutely had no clue about. And I am so grateful for that experience. These were people then that invited me to bless their unions and baptize their babies and begin to tease out what justice might look like for gay and lesbian people in the church. We weren't even dealing with the larger culture at that point. In the late 1980s, AIDS hit Chicago like a freight train out of control. I suspect some of you remember those years. None of us were ready for that, not the hospitals, not the public health agencies, not the social service agencies, not the funeral homes, and certainly not the church. I look back on those years and I think that's as close to ministry in a war zone as I can imagine. It was pretty daunting. And the work in those years shattered my soul into millions of pieces. And then I think reforged my soul into something harder and brighter and sharper. And I think for me, a passion for justice emerged out of that experience because it was the only way I could figure out how to give some meaning to all of that suffering and death and grief and loss and fear, not to mention courage and compassion and love. Since then, my church has certainly struggled quite publicly with many of these issues. We've moved forward, I think. It's been a messy struggle, costly, sometimes ugly, painful, but productive in many ways within the church. And yet what I've come to over those years is that it's not enough for people of faith, for those of us within churches or faith communities, simply to fix our churches, our synagogues, our faith communities. If we cannot take this message to the world in which we live, then it's not worthy of the God that we serve. It's like doing soup kitchens and food pantries and not worrying about the causes of poverty in the culture. And serving at this cathedral here in Chicago, again, like my first parish, this is a place long before I got there that's open and affirming and able to celebrate the fullness of our human conditions and support each other in that and understand the richness that we give each other in all our diversity and differences. That's all terrific. But unless we start to make the difference in our larger communities, it just makes us feel good. And what changes? Not this world. When I do weddings, weddings with brides and grooms, I from time to time will stand before that couple on their wedding day and hold their marriage license in my hand. I was married in 1967. Those were years I was pretty young and stupid and in love. I'm not young anymore. I had lots of friends who said, "Why are you getting married? Why are you doing that establishment kind of thing? It's just a piece of paper." Well, now I stand before couples in my congregation, in my cathedral, and say, "You think it's just a piece of paper? It's so much more than a piece of paper. This marriage license says to you something about how your society values your relationship, your way of being together, your way of being a household, a family. And it's not just a piece of paper when you can't get one. It means so much more than that." And I understand all about all of those civil rights and benefits that come with these marriage licenses for heterosexual people. But it's more than just a list of rights and benefits. It is about how our society values us and the way we love and who we love and what that means for how we live out our lives. What I've learned in all these years is that the more human beings in any society that live together in stable, committed, faithful relationships, where households are able to raise children in those kinds of stable, faithful ways, where people can support each other and be supported by the larger community, the more folk that fall into those categories, the better it is for each and every one of us. It just makes for a better society. I am happy to support this legislation. We all know it is not good enough, that so much more is needed. It's a start, it's a beginning, it is the art of the possible. It moves us forward just that little bit. But my prayer for this legislation and for the debates that are going to happen is that, like my early parishioners in the 80s, it will raise consciousness, it will raise awareness, it will open us up to new kinds of conversations, and God help us all. It will move us toward the kind of society that